everybody, it's Patricia Hogan Hussain and it's me, Louise Travat, and we're here because we're back at school, aren't we, Patricia?
We are back to school. Easter holidays are over, so back to working.
And that means that all the parents in the lovely nation that we have here are all teachers, because most of the children, apart from the key workers, are still being homeschooled. And you know that what we've been doing over the last 3 weeks is each day we've been coming and talking to you about homeschooling and education and coming up with ideas and activities, and we've had a great time over the last 3 weeks. We realised that this morning that the BBC have done something quite remarkable, haven't they, Patricia? What have they been doing?
They have. So they've been working really hard, I would say, over the last 4 weeks since we've gone into lockdown and no school. And they have produced a whole timetable of daily lessons for all children. It starts from year 1 in primary school, goes all the way through to year 6, so that covers the whole of primary school. And then it goes into secondary school, so all the way from year 7 up to the end of GCSEs. And then I noticed they've even got post 16, so looking at A-level sixth form students. So there's an awful lot of resources out there for us.
So what they've done is they've taken the BBC Bitesize and they've put this framework of the age ranges around it. So Patricia recognises quite a lot of the materials that are up today, for example, however, they are within a framework so that you can follow lessons each day. So each day they will put on a timetable of a maths and an English and then another subject. Exactly what we were talking about last week, Patricia. So we think they've probably been earwigging on our webinars. So we think this is a great idea. What we are going to do each day to add value to that is to, we're going to put a little video out. Patricia and Jane Dickens as well for the preschool. We're going to put a little video out every day, 5 or 10 minutes worth. And then if you want us to, we'll come on live and answer some of your questions. We are being a little bit thwarted again by broadband, so for that we apologise. But we're going to sort something out. You can put comments in the Facebook page and we'll be able to answer them, or questions in the Facebook page. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how you can mobilize these lessons and how you can make them a part of everyday life. We've just been having a great discussion, haven't we, about the 2 sessions for today, age 5-6 age range, I think they were from, and the lesson today was similes and metaphors. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, if you can crack similes and metaphors in one day, that would be absolutely fantastic. And then tomorrow there's alliterations, and I'm thinking, well, what's the purpose of alliterations in learning English? So Patricia and I have been just having quite a good discussion about that. So I'm going to come to Patricia in a minute, and she's going to share with you her thoughts on how in school they would be working with similes and metaphors and alliterations in terms of where does that take your English practice. So over to you, Patricia.
So we would be teaching writing over we normally teach it over a 2 to 3 week period of time. So we would only expect a really good piece of writing, and this is from year 5-6, but I know year 3-4, so the 6 and 7-year-olds do the same. A really good piece of writing after 2 to 3 weeks worth of work. So we'd have a week where we would look at examples of whatever that writing was. So say, for example, it was descriptive writing. So we would look at some examples of some great texts, maybe one, maybe a few of them, look at the features of that text, look at how the author had used description to engage his or her reader. Then we would have a week of skills-based work, which is like what we were talking about is happening today on Bitesize. We often use a lot of the Bitesize resources for that. So you'd have similes and metaphors, you'd have onomatopoeia, you'd have alliteration, and the children would have little practical exercises to do every day. Then only in the third week would we ask them to really start being creative and imaginative. So we would say, right, use all of those skills that you've had. Think about what you learned about descriptive writing when we looked at some really good examples. And now off you go. And then we have a week of planning.
What is in the background? Is that Emily?
I'm doing a video. What's wrong? He's fine, don't worry, he's fine. Sorry. Sorry, the cleaners come. Sorry. Yeah. So back to writing. So then you would have a week of writing where they would use all of their skills to write their own piece of descriptive writing. So although there may be little exercises every day, we don't want people to feel like, gosh, we have to get them to do a whole piece of writing every single day.
Okay, so that's great context. So what we can do, we now know that we've got some really good resources with BBC Bitesize. We know that also you will have had some input from your schools, whatever that might be, and that's different across the land. So we're hearing that that's very different across different schools, and it's different across different age ranges as well. So, you know, if you're a parent and you feel responsible for the homeschooling of your children, there's lots and lots of different ways in which we can do it. Now that we've got that structuredness with that BBC Bitesize have given, which is, to be honest, it's what we would have done had we got the resources that the BBC have got. Because you know, this is the way that Patricia and I have been thinking over the last 3 weeks and been working towards. What we would really like to do now is to be able to make sense of that so that you can feel that you're adding value. We want to make this really clear so that learning is really fun and progressive. So that's what we're going to provide each day for you. Patricia was saying that the activity was similes and metaphors, and then it was alliterations. And I think by the end of the week, the children were asked to write a news report. Well, journalism is quite something, isn't it? And we were beginning to explore how a newspaper article could allow you to be using those similes and metaphors. We were considering how we might use alliterations in something like the headline, for example. So we are going to do that each day. We're going to have a look at the online bite-size materials. We'll also work across the age ranges, and please put your questions in the comments below if you have any questions. Patricia, what would you like to say now about the exercises for today?
Okay, so for today, before we got a chance to look at the BBC Bitesize, we thought we would do something about reading. And I took something that you can easily access online. It's a really famous story. It's called The Ironman by Ted Hughes, and it's 5 chapters to be read over 5 nights, which is a really lovely idea. It's a very old book. It's part of the year 3-4 curriculum. So I was looking at the first chapter, literally the first paragraph, sorry, and thinking about how we could talk about using different comprehension skills whilst reading that chapter, that paragraph with your child. So they can read it to you, you can read it together, they can listen. What's really important in reading comprehension is about the understanding of what they have read. So something that we use a lot, and Louise, you're going to love this, it's the different types of questions are represented by different dogs, which is really sweet. Now my printer's not very good, but this, can you see him?
Yes.
A retriever. So you have questions that are retrieval questions, and that's Rex the retriever. So the children are just asked to find out something from the text. Then we have a little one here called Predicting Pip. The children are asked to predict what they think might happen. So with those two examples, you could begin with the front cover of the book. So this is just a print off of the front cover of the Ironman. Get that anywhere. And we can put a link in with a link to a BBC Bitesize, interestingly, video about the Ironman, and you can get the whole text. Just read it online. So to predict, you'd say to the children, oh, what can you tell me about this front cover? What do you think it's going to be about? You've obviously got the two different sizes of characters. Who could that be? And who could this be? How do you think that person's feeling? Where is it set? What might be going to happen? Think about the language, the use of the word iron. What do they know about iron? This is a whole lesson on predicting what's going to happen. Then I've taken the first paragraph, and it says, the Iron Man came to the top of the cliff. How far had he walked? Nobody knows. Where had he come from? Nobody knows. How was he made? Nobody knows. I think that's one of the best openings I've ever read in a book anywhere. I love that. It brings up so many questions, and you could do so much lovely prediction with that. So where has he come from? What do you think? Where was he going? So some really great conversation there. But going back to the retrieval questions, Rex the retriever, you could ask, well, where did the Iron Man come to? And the sentence says, the Iron Man came to the top of the cliff. Very simple retrieval question. Now you might be asked, another type of question is inference iggy. So we are inferring meaning. When we have inference iggy, he's presented as a detective, so he's going around with a big magnifying glass, and it's saying to the children, you're like a detective. So in a text you might have the boy put his umbrella up so that he wouldn't get wet, and an inference question would be, what was the weather like? So your child would be saying, well, it was raining, and I know that because it said in the text the boy had to put his umbrella up. So then thinking back to the Iron Man, we've got how far had he walked? Nobody knows. Where had he come from? Nobody knows. How was he made? Nobody knows. Taller than a house, the Iron Man stood at the top of the cliff, on the very brink, in the darkness. So an inference question could be, what time of day do you think it was? So in the darkness would allow you to infer that it must be night time. And then your child will be using evidence from the text there to say, well, I think that because it's in the darkness. There are other talks and other ideas. You have Victor vocabulary. And with that, you think about what language there is in the text and what it might mean. So a word that comes to my mind here is it says, the Iron Man stood at the top of the cliff, on the very brink, in the darkness. So when we read in class, we have children doing a little glossary where they have the meanings of all the words we don't know. And when they hear a word they don't know, they pop their hands up or they say beep or something. So we all stop and say, right, what word is it that you don't know? Brink. So we think about, what could it mean? What sort of word is it? Is it a noun? Is it an adjective? Is it describing something? Is it a doing word? Is it a verb? And through conversation, you put other words in and you say, well, could it mean a colour? Could it be red? Is it an adjective? And they'll say, no, well, it couldn't be that. So you have a conversation about how you can read around a word to make an educated guess about what it means. And then clearly you can teach the skill of looking things up in a dictionary to check your understanding of the meaning. And then we have, I'll see who else we've got. We have Kathy Commentator, and that is for the children to have the opportunity to give an opinion on the text. Does it remind you of anything that you've read before? That's really important, making links between other books they've read. Or they could put their own feelings into it. How would you have felt if you were standing at the top of a cliff where you'd never been before? Goes on in the text to tell us that the Ironman had never seen the sea. So how would you feel if you were standing somewhere looking at something you had never seen before? So you can see how you can get so many skills, so many comprehension skills out of a very, very small piece of text. And if you were reading that chapter every night, you'd get an awful lot covered within a week.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. That's really lovely. I like the fact that the dogs are bringing their own personalities and their own sense of interest really in that reading. So, you know, Rex the retriever is retrieving information, and so therefore you could even work with your children on remembering those different elements of reading, so that you are preparing what you're going to be listening for in future reading examples and articles. So just remembering the different types of dogs is a part of that process of understanding the wholeness of reading. And as you were reading that out, I was thinking, you know, when you sit and you go through Netflix or Amazon, or you look for the film that you want to watch, you're going through that process all the time of trying to understand and infer what the film is going to be all about, and make decisions about whether or not you're going to like it, if it's worth your, you know, hour and 20 minutes or so. So we're doing that as adults all the time in that very informal setting, as well as in our work settings as well. So I think that's a really exciting exercise, and definitely the dogs, we will print those, we'll put the link to those, or put a document of those in the post below. So please feel free to download those, and please feel free to use those dogs when you're going through the BBC Bitesize stories too. Yes? Would you?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, absolutely. Because obviously we talked before about David Walliams, who's doing daily readings of the world's worst children. We listen to them in school, they're great. And I noticed BBC Bitesize seem to be doing a reading every Friday, so they'd be interesting to see their reading lesson. You will hear lots of that language. You will hear prediction, inference. So hopefully those dogs might help with that. The other thing just about reading, Audible are doing free books for children for the whole time that school is shut down. So I don't think you even have to have an account, or you don't have to pay. It's completely free. So listening to these stories and talking about them as well. So there's loads of lovely reading to be done.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you very much indeed, Patricia. So we'll be back tomorrow. We'll have a quick look at Bitesize for tomorrow. We'll link what we're doing with Bitesize. Please put your questions and your comments down here. We'll do our best. We're coaches, and as coaches, what we are interested in is the how, the process of how we get the best outcome. So if the outcome is that we need to understand what similes and metaphors are, or alliterations, or that we are reading from a whole perspective using the dogs as that lovely framework, then you know, we know that that has some kind of impact on you as parents. We're really happy to chat with you about that. If you've got any questions, anything that you want to ask us, anything that you want to discuss about needing support with that, give us a comment down below and we can answer that for you. Thanks ever so much, everyone. We'll see you very soon. Take care.
Bye.